Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts.
Brian Peckrill, welcome to the conversation today.
The pleasure to be here, John. It's great to join the Human Capital Leadership Podcast. I'm looking forward to the talk.
It is a real pleasure to be with you. I've been really looking forward to this. Where are you joining me from?
I am in downtown Chicago, Illinois, the second city.
I love Chicago. It's been a while since I've been there, a few years, but great place. Beautiful this time of year. I'm joining you from south of Salt Lake City in Utah. We're starting to get into the fall. It's also a beautiful time of year here. I can't wait for the fall colors to bloom in the mountains. Always great to get into the mountains in the fall here in Utah. Today, we're going to be talking about ethical leadership in America, about the topic generally, but also about your Ethical Leadership in America 2024 program. And we're going to explore that a little bit together here in a few minutes. As we get started, I wanted to share Brian's bio with everybody. Brian Peckrill is Executive Director of the William G. McGowan Charitable Fund, leading all operations of the fund. He has previously served as the Fellows Program Director, where he was responsible for the design and implementation of this forward-thinking, ethics-focused experience for top MBA students, as well as fostering an active and engaged alumni community of young business leaders as they embark on and manage their careers. Prior to joining the McGowan Fund, Brian served as Vice President of WorldChicago, a Chicago-based nonprofit organization focused on engaging the world in person-to-person exchange-based capacity-building projects. Now, I could go on. You've done a lot of really cool stuff. You've been to and traveled to a lot of cool places. But I'm going to pause there, Brian. Anything you would like to highlight by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in further?
Yeah, John, thank you for reading that bio. Certainly, the McGowan Fund, we're in our 31st year right now. Core to our focus is the belief that all lives have equal value and that we disrupt cycles of poverty through community-based grant making. That said, what we've discovered during the Great Recession in 2008, 9, 10 is that our philanthropic impact is nothing without a healthy and ethical business environment. So we realized that, charity doesn't just work independently of business. We work hand in hand to ensure that healthy society, a positive economy can drive society forward, and then we can help people on the margins get into the middle class and live their best life. So since 2008, 9, 10, 11, we've taken a larger emphasis on the importance of ethical leadership, the importance of healthy business in society, because, philanthropy can't do it without healthy business.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in a holistic approach to a healthy society. When we talk about ethical leadership, when we talk about solving the most challenging complicated societal issues and problems, we can't tackle it with, a one-prong approach, a single-prong approach. Sometimes people will point to, capitalism as being the answer or philanthropy as being the answer or whatever. No, I mean, there are many pathways towards social justice, towards improvement, and we need to take holistic approaches, a systems approach towards all of these different pathways to bring about change, to bring about sustainable change, and to bring about ethical and healthy change in the world, and to bring about ethical change. And so I really appreciate what you're doing. We can work together. We can work with business and government and nonprofit and all communities around the country to bring about the types of changes I think most Americans want. Sometimes we disagree on the particulars. We have come from different political backgrounds, different social, economic, political ideologies and whatnot, but we don't need to get stuck on all the differences. We have a lot in common. And if we can get together and have conversations and focus on, the things we do have in common, I think there's a lot we can accomplish as we try to tackle these most challenging problems together. Okay, so let's talk about ethical leadership in America in 2024. What is your take on institutional trust? Is enterprise trusted in 2024? Are institutions trusted in 2024?
John, it's an interesting question. It's a good question. It's one that we're hearing more and more. If you look at the 2024 Edelman Trust Barometer, what you'll see is that over the past several years, for the most part, trust has been declining across our major institutions, across government, media, business, and not-for-profits. What we also see, though, is that business is ahead of both government and media. And while it's not an outstanding number, I wish it was higher. We're also seeing that people believe that business is capable of leading societal change. In fact, in the most recent Edelman Trust Barometer, 62% of respondents believe that CEOs should not just take the lead in focusing on business challenges, but they should also address societal issues. This is significant, in my opinion. It shows that businesses are now expected to fill the gap where other institutions are faltering. And I believe it speaks to the importance of ethical leadership in business today.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's across institutions. So it is in corporate America, it is in government, it is in religious institution, nonprofit, NGO, right? Like across institutional type, we see declining trust across institutions. And the populace generally is looking towards institutions across the spectrum. They're looking towards business. They have high expectations for business in terms of how they're going to be socially responsible, how they're going to be engaged in these complex social issues that customers feel very strongly about. Particularly, I think, millennial Gen Z consumers, they have strong feelings about social stances on various issues, and perhaps prior generations, baby boomer and Gen X consumers maybe didn't care, maybe they still don't care. I don't know about some of those issues quite so much, and they're like, who cares if a business has any stance on this or that issue, or if they're green or whatever, maybe they still don't care, but the younger generations do care, and they do expect businesses to practice socially responsible practices and environmentally responsible practices and those sorts of things, and they're putting pressure on businesses to do those things. And so then whether a leader of an organization is inclined that way or not naturally themselves, or whether it's just kind of the business reality of the day where they have that pressure and it's kind of the business pressure, businesses are focusing more that way. Whether it's the ESG goals or the triple bottom line efforts of the day, we have definitely seen movement that direction for sure. How do you feel like organizations generally are doing, in recent years as there's been more and more pressure that direction?
Well, a couple of years ago, the McGowan Fund launched this initiative called the Ethical Leader of the Year Award, which tries to recognize CEOs who are balancing both profitability and ethical leadership. What this has allowed us to do is really dig into the records of a lot of CEOs across the Fortune 500. And what we're seeing is that there are a lot of CEOs who are truly putting a good amount of emphasis on stakeholder management, who are trying to create systems and processes and contributions to society that go beyond just simply profitability, but also try to benefit their organizations and society at large. I can say that I don't believe it's every single organization, but to a certain extent, that is capitalism. People should have the opportunity to invest their dollars in the organizations and the value propositions that they want. But to your point, we're seeing more and more of it because society and the younger generations are demanding it. And to tie this with the trust, I think that there's signs for hope, particularly amongst business, that proposition is emerging.
Yeah. And so in this landscape, what are the motivations for launching this Ethical Leader of the Year award? Why did you choose SHRM to partner with? And just tell us more about this award.
Absolutely. Our motivations for launching the Ethical Leader of the Year award are to respond to exactly what you just said. We believe that there's growing recognition that ethical leadership is not just some business imperative. There's a moral obligation, and vice versa. There's not just a moral obligation, but there's a business imperative. Before I was talking about the Edelman Trust Barometer, and I think that people are looking towards businesses, particularly CEOs, to lead with integrity, transparency, and accountability. And this is an award that we hope shines lights on leaders who embody these values and serves as a model for others in the corporate world to follow. Partnering with SHRM was just a natural fit. The Society for Human Resource Management is really the global leader in shaping workplace culture, and they have a better understanding of human capital and the challenges that organizations face across the world than really anyone else. And they speak directly to the workforce. So for us, it's an ideal partner for getting our word out and for really emphasizing and highlighting the best practices of ethical leadership in leadership positions.
Yeah, really in the United States, there's no larger, more embedded organization when it comes to HR, people management, and organizational culture practice and professionalism, right? That's the main organization. And internationally, it's such a huge player. So a wonderful organization and a great partner. That's excellent. So what are the things you're looking for in the Ethical Leader of the Year? What would be like the hallmark of like these traits and characteristics and when we're thinking of an executive, a CEO, or other types of executives or other leaders, what would be that person who isn't just talking big things, making big statements, saying the nice pretty things, but what would they be doing to really qualify for this sort of an award?
Absolutely. So we've established a set of principles that are guided from the legacy of our benefactor, Bill McGowan, the former CEO of MCI Communications, and his leadership of one of the larger telecommunication companies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, in addition to the founding principles of our McGowan Fellows Program, a leadership initiative that we launched 15 years ago to teach and train second-year MBA students in ethical leadership. We use these same principles of ethical leadership for managing our organization in our Fellows Program. And these principles for us are accountability, courage, character and integrity, empathy, resilience, and self-awareness. We look at these principles through three unique lenses. The first is the management of people. How are you a courageous leader of people, for example? The next is processes. How do you create accountable processes for your people, for the world around you? And last but not least is the goods and services that you provide. How do you create, for example, resilient and self-aware products that benefit society and the world around us? So we look at all of our leaders through these lenses, through these 6 principles of ethical leadership, as well as their leadership of people, processes, and contributions to society, to see if these individuals are truly thinking about values-based leadership in the products and processes that they put in this world. And at the end of the day, we've selected 3 winners to this point. Marvin Ellison of Lowe's, Ed Bastian of Delta, and Charles Lowry of Prudential. And I believe that these leaders really exemplify these principles of putting principle-based leadership in effect at the highest of levels and having it trickle down through your organization so that your organization is not just a profitable, successful organization, but doing so in a way that benefits both the people in the organization, the customers outside the organization, and the entire ecosystem in which it exists.
Yeah, I really like that. And as I mentioned earlier, this idea of the triple bottom line, people, place, planet, it, the idea that we really can, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like we can still, or sorry, people, profit, planet, that we really can ultimately be in the business for making money, shareholder value, right? That we really can be a people-centric organization, both for internally for the employees and for our customers, and that we can be environmentally responsible and good stewards of this planet and for the communities that surround us. That we can do all three. We can ultimately be that responsible type of leader. And in fact, in this modern day and age, I think it's those organizations that take on this mantle, this responsibility. They are going to be the most financially successful organizations because of the heightened expectation that the consumers have for organizations to be more responsible. So I think these three are just such a great set to highlight. We could go really into kind of a more in-depth case study of these organizations and these individuals, because it's really fascinating to break these principles down, I think, and to really better understand the ethical deployment of human capital as it relates to those principles. Let's dig in and spend maybe the rest of our time just talking about that ethical use of human capital in the workplace, because we've all seen unethical use of human capital. We've all seen exploitation. We've all seen, I don't know. I mean, maybe if I put the best possible spin on it, I can say if I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt, maybe they're just, they're not nefarious. They're not trying to exploit. They're not trying to take advantage. They're not, waking up in the morning thinking, ha ha ha, I'm going to, exploit or take advantage or somehow harm or hurt, the people in my organization today. But, people just often, in the grind, the day-to-day grind of making organizations run and getting payroll out and just doing everything that it takes to make an organization run, often the people side kind of gets overlooked and the screws get put to the people, and that ethical use of human capital often is not the priority, even if it's the intention of a lot of leaders. So how do you define that ethical use of human capital in the workplace, and how can we really truly make that a priority so it's not just an intention, but it actually goes into action?
Absolutely. This is something I think about a lot, certainly consider in regards to the management of the staff at the McGowan Fund. I think the most foundational piece of defining ethical human capital use is that human capital starts with people, and people are, your employees have their individual rights, their personal and professional aspirations, and they have a need for balance. So at the heart of any ethical human capital management is fairness and inclusion, creating an environment where people are treated equally, they have fair compensation, work-life balance, and have supports and access to mental health support. That is really core to an ethical deployment of human capital. And it's not just the right thing to do. This will lead to higher job satisfaction and greater productivity over the long run. I also think organizations need to look inward. There's accountability is a crucial aspect of this ethical human capital. Organizations need to create environments where they set clear expectations, they provide feedback, and they must hold themselves accountable for fostering these kinds of supportive work cultures. And last but not least, I think that to have an ethical human capital requires sustainable development, helping employees grow through training. We're about to hit this new wave we are in the midst of this new wave of AI, and it becoming integrated into this workplace. And businesses need to ensure that these technologies are implemented in a way that supports employees and doesn't simply displace them. Recently, I was at the SHRM conference and we saw our friend Johnny Taylor, the CEO of the Society for Human Resource Management. He was speaking about how it's not AI versus HR, it's HR plus ROI, HR plus AI. And when that equation is done, it leads to return on investment. And I think that captures this idea of sustainable development in human capital perfectly. And ultimately, I believe that ethical human capital management ensures that businesses don't just maximize profit, but invest in their people, and they create fair and ethical and inclusive workplaces.
Yeah, and that responsibility is everyone's. When we talk about ethical human capital, just yesterday, I was having a conversation. I was working with an organization, and they were having some challenges. This is common, right? Every organization has these issues. There's no perfect organization, and you can have the best values, you can have the best aspirations, you can have the best of intentions, and there's still going to be issues. There's still going to be challenges because we're human, right? So, anyways, I was working with an organization. I trust that they have the best of intentions, but there are issues, and I was talking to one of the employee relations people in the people and culture team. And, there's some pervasive challenges that they're facing. And, we were kind of having this conversation, a little bit of a debate, frankly, around this very topic, the ethical use of human capital. And really, what's the responsibility? What's the responsibility of different stakeholders within the organization? Kind of the line manager, line supervisor, line manager, middle management, up to executives, up to the CEO. What's the role of HR or the people and culture team, and how they navigate, supporting the culture, having the healthy culture, and like you talked about, job satisfaction, employee engagement, the employee experience, all of that. This particular individual, the employee relations team, like how do they navigate the balance between like representing management, but also supporting and advocating for the employees, and it's a tension, right? It's a complicated thing to fight for this ethical use of human capital while sometimes walking a tightrope, between management and the employees and whatever. And it was a fascinating conversation. My take personally, as kind of an outsider coming in and looking at the challenges and the problems, was that they're perhaps erring too far on the side of management and not on the side of support and advocacy for employees. And that there's a little bit too much of not necessarily exploitation of employees, but not enough of the support and advocacy for the healthy workplace culture, the employee experience, and those sorts of things. But my point is, it's a hard balance. It's a hard thing to capture, and it's despite the best of intentions, it's a challenge to find this ethical use of human capital and to really put it into practice. Any suggestions that you would have for anyone who's listening to what I'm saying and they're like, yeah, that's what we deal with every day. Like we're not exactly sure like how to do this. Like we want to, but we're not sure. Any thoughts on like what people can try, in their organizations? They listen to this podcast, they go back to their teams. What can they try right now?
Yeah, these are great questions, and they are very difficult to get right. I believe deeply in when it comes to leadership development and fostering your staffs and growing your staff. I believe deeply in simulation-based leadership development, using different tools. I was just actually talking to somebody else that works at an organization called Ability about using different types of tools, gamifying leadership discussion and conversations. These are great tools that help people step outside their comfort zones, for them to see see their job functions and their organizations from different spaces. And from these types of simulations, people can start to understand their jobs in different ways. They can start to understand the roles of management and the roles of staff, develop new and different linkages that can, I think, drive organizations forward.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's a loaded question, right? There's no easy answers to this. If there was, we'd have already cracked the nut, right? And we would already be able to do it.
Complex challenges don't have easy solutions. They don't have easy answers.
That's absolutely right. I think that's the wrestle, right? That's the wrestle that we always have to be willing to deal with. And we always have to be willing to ask ourselves these hard questions, to wrestle with it, to self-reflect, and to just know that we've probably never arrived. And we probably always have to continue to challenge ourselves and ask ourselves the question and assume that we haven't figured it out, and continue to try to learn and grow and push ourselves to be better. I think that's ultimately what we have to try to do. Well, Brian, I note the time. I'm going to have to let you go here in a few minutes, but before we wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, where they can find out more about this award, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Absolutely, John. It was a pleasure to be here with you and chat. You can learn more about the William G. McGowan Charitable Fund and the Ethical Leader of the Year Award at our webpage. It is McGowanFund.org. And the last thing I can say is it's not if or, it's and. You can have an ethical organization that does right to its stakeholders and make profits, and the best organizations do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's just been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Brian can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.